Hey guys, patch 8.5 just dropped, so we're going to be looking at what's changed, grouping them up a bit differently today, and big changes then could be big and minor ones. Plus remember, we have the new AD carry champion coming out this patch. The start of the big changes is really Banner of Command. The siege, meaning bonus damage to turret effects from Banner of Command and Hand of Baron, are no longer going to stack. It can't be much of a surprise unless you've been living under a rock in 8.4. To be honest, I haven't really seen it abused a ton in solo queue, but every time it has been abused, you pair it up with Baron and it's basically a free inhib, and hopefully this is going to stop it. Tristana is one of the biggest changes this patch though. Attack range has been decreased to 525 to start the game. It still scales with your passive though, so don't worry about that. And your W base damage has actually been increased. Tristana is one of the safest AD carries you can play that can still carry and do really well, like a hyper carry. This is going to be trying to make her a little bit weaker in the lane phase unless you go full ham, which will actually be slightly stronger. The idea is that if you can punish her lower range early, then she won't be as much of a problem, which is kind of true. Like, she doesn't become a proper beast until 3 items. That is when she really takes over the game. If you mess it up versus her in lane though and she jumps in, she'll actually be more deadly now than before. Only slightly, but a little bit more. She is weaker for sure, but not likely to make her garbage either. There are a couple of other AD carries related stuff with Keystone. So press the attack, for example, the damage amp on that has been increased at 8 levels. It now starts at 8% rather than 4%. Even though Riot tried to say the 8.4 changes were a buff to press the attack, it turns out it definitely wasn't. This makes more sense and how the Keystone should really work. 8 to 12% now isn't that bad, much better than how it was this patch. And remember, we still have the better base damage on this as well. The recent issue with press the attack has more been, is it better than anything else we can take, especially for AD carries with fleet footwork, which leads me nice and smoothly into our next one. Fleet footwork is getting a nerf. The range penalty on minion healing has been increased. It now only heals for 30%, which is half of what it was doing on 8.4. It does kind of make sense. It's a little bit too safe in the lane at the moment, but then that is kind of the point of taking this as well. You trade damage for healing. There are two parts though really about this. Lane healing, which is nerfed, and teamfight healing, which is the same. The teamfight stuff is really important though. It's there so we don't have to buy lifesteal in the game from our items. At least they hit the right side of this, because if they hit the lifesteal side in teamfights, it would be really bad. It's going to be weaker in lane, easier to beat someone with fleet footwork now, and hopefully out-trade them without them just healing back up straight away. Aftershock is another keystone that's getting changed. The cooldown is increased to 35 seconds now, and actually I have a draft video saved for this keystone, but I'm not sure if I want to release it. Basically, Aftershock is so much better than people think it is, but it's not really for tanks anymore. Let me know if you want to see what I'm talking about in a video, but this nerf is because of that, because it is so good in the lane phase. It makes no difference to team fights, so you don't have to worry about that, but for top laners, for example, this is giving a bigger window for the enemy to trade back when it's on cooldown. One of the other really big champion changes is to Nocturne. His passive healing has been increased, and the passive cooldown refresh on a champion hit has been increased as well, so you'll have your passive more. Your Q missile speed has been increased, and your W will last longer now while traveling with your ultimate, so it doesn't just like cancel it out if you press it before. Your ultimate blackout though and recast duration has been increased to 6 seconds. Now I love me some Nocturne, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I feel like these are really good changes. Passive healing to clear a little bit healthier in the jungle means you should hop into ganks close to full health now, and then when you duel people, you should get it up twice as fast as before. Your Q and W things are really just quality of life. They're nice, but they're not really a massive deal. The R change though, I really love. I think it is nuts. 6 seconds of being blind in a team fight is a long time. Imagine engaging a fight, right? And then Nocturne on the enemy team presses this as it starts. That is 6 seconds where his team can whack your front line, but you can't really find the enemy team to hit. It gives him a bit more freedom to find like the right time to jump in, which is really nice, but I think the extra game impact that this kind of like blind duration increase actually brings is going to be huge, to be honest. Ryze is getting another couple of nerfs here. His E damage increased at early levels, so that's a buff, but his E spread damage has been halved, and his ultimate cooldown has increased to 3 minutes. Ryze is a bit too strong right now. On a half-decent player, he is going to ruin you with the new updated items. He does a lot of damage. It's also kind of unlucky, though, that he is an issue in pro play, which makes these nerfs come a lot sooner than they probably would have for a different star champion. According to Riot, the spread damage wave clear is something weaker Ryze players suck with, but good ones can use properly. Because that is such a big deal and it makes such a big difference because the wave clear is so good, it increases the obvious gap between how good you are with Ryze. I'm not sure if you agree with that explanation or not, but that is why the nerf has come through. His ultimate one is really big for roaming though, up to basically the same cooldown as a summoner spell now, so you really will not be seeing him use that realm warp very often. The thing that will really suck more than anything else though is you can push him on a tower now, and he really can't push back as hard with 50% of the spread damage. That's actually kind of ridiculous, and it will be an easy way to shut Rise down now. Sticking with the mid lane, Zoe nerfs didn't last very long, but they seem to just kind of want to make her a huge burst mage rather than anything else, to be honest. Her Q is going to do more base damage, has triple the AP ratio up to 60% now, less AoE damage, and instead of applying her passive damage, it does bonus based on her level. Her basic attack range is actually up to 550, and her W range was increased to match that. So the biggest things are giving her Q a ton more damage now, 45 more base damage rank 5, and using 60% of your AP now instead of 20%. The passive damage is basically replaced with this new scaling thing, but it's the AP ratio that is actually the really big thing. I think people might stop buying Lichbane, just stack AP like a poke champion would, and try to one-shot people all game now, because that 60% is going to be using a lot of your AP. With how much damage that thing can do now, if you hit it, at least this is obviously the main point. If you miss your Q, you're going to be doing no damage at all anymore. I think she'll at least be back to good, maybe not as good as she was before, but at least decent. The other stuff is cool that they are buffing, but the main thing you have to know really, like walking into Zoe this patch, is when she has a few items, she will hurt way more with the Q, so you really need to flash or dodge it. The final really big change is to Cloud Drake. Rather than only granting out of combat move speed like it is now, it will now grant movement speed at all times, and that increases while out of combat. There isn't really too much to say about this one, but Cloud Drake is actually going to be worth taking again now, so if you see it, you do kind of want it. In combat move speed is really valuable. It's one of those things that does a lot of behind the scenes, I guess, without you really realizing. You won't notice the extra speed, but it will help you kite and actually go around a fight a lot easier. Moving into our could be big, these seem decent, but shouldn't be as big as the other ones we talked about. So the first one is Jhin. I know a lot of people think Jhin is coming back in 8.5, and he could be, but I'm not entirely convinced. He'll be better, but I'm not entirely sure he'll be like broken. His passive bonus damage is going up, his Q damage ratio is going up, and his W can root from any damage from Jhin or allies now. Even with those, the meta doesn't really suit him that well right now, the same reason Misfortune hasn't played a ton. That is a problem, but the passive AD ratio realistically is about a 3% increase for most of the game. At level 10, you go from 11% to 14%, which is good, but it's not game breaking. The main thing really is when you get to late game, because it's a percentage, it also gets way better as the game goes on, so it is aimed for the later stages of the game. Q is a nice change, and your W though, rooting off of anything will help a lot. I reckon that is the biggest change here really. Being able to root off your ultimate shots or your grenade would actually be the thing that brings him back properly if he starts to be played in 8.5. A couple of tank things really. Tank junglers won't be quite as good anymore this patch. They're losing 5% off of Cinderhulk. It's a decent chunk though when you're stacking so much health anyway. It's not massive on its own, but it also feeds into this other change from Warmog. So basically they're making the health threshold for the passive a little bit higher. They're trying to make it so that Warmog's healing doesn't come online as early into the game now, so you can't just absorb all this poke damage and then heal back up straight away. Another item thing is the Hextech GLP 800. The active damage and slow has been increased. It seems pretty bad at the moment compared to the other Lost Chapter items you can get. I actually don't think I've seen anyone build this yet actually on 8.4. I'm not really sure. The chances are they will need to buff it a little bit more to make it really good, but it's just a proper niche item. Not many champions want to chase you down with this anyway. Olaf has a bunch of changes this patch though, which are really good. So his E cooldown decreased, the AD ratio is up a little bit, but his ultimate also being changed. Flat bonus AD decreased by a ton because it now also gains a bonus 30% of his total AD. Sometimes I see Olaf and he's complete shite. Sometimes he is amazing, so I'm not really sure what the deal is with that and where he fits in the current meta anyway. I think he's okay though, just a bit different to play. Either way, this is going to make him scale into the game a lot better. You have 30% now total AD ratio on there. That is massive. That is items and also your base included. Playing around with total AD ratios can make a champ like crap or busted overnight, and I'm not sure if it would do it for this one, but he will be a lot better mid to late game. He will hurt a lot more. That is the main thing. Rather than just being a meat shield, he can actually kill you. The last kind of could be big change is to Galio. His Q cooldown mana cost increase to later ranks. Doesn't seem that bad, and maybe it should be in the small one, but the mana cost is going up to 130 rank 5, which is a lot of mana. You really cannot spam this as much anymore. Well, you can't anyway because the cooldown is up as well, but you also can't because you'll burn through your mana pretty quick. The issue with Galio right now though is how much damage he can do while taking Aftershock as his keystone, and this does not really affect that playstyle. Finally then, moving into our small changes, Azir is the first one. His Q damage has been decreased down by 30, rank 5, but it is only your Q and not your soldier damage. It does add up a little bit, but it's not too big thankfully. It's probably targeting high elo players that play Azir a lot right now, but one of the things that actually a lot of people have realized is that Azir is pretty good at every elo now because he's just easier to play. Rengar is also getting some changes, and so far the Rengar Reaver was a pretty big fail. I think actually made him worse, but then people are relearning him again, so that doesn't mean he's just really weak. I don't think he's actually that bad, like as bad as he looks on win rate sites, which is By the way, bottom of the jungle and top lane at the moment, it really didn't do that well out of the revert. But these changes won't change that too much. I feel like it will just take some time to adjust to the new Rengar, and then we'll see if he's actually really bad or not. The next one for Shyvana is just a revert to nerfs in 8.4. They took down her total AD ratio on a bite and its AD per level. Both were too much because press the attack also sucked, funnily enough. They're keeping the total AD ratio nerf, but they're going to be reverting the AD per level to try to bring her up a little bit more and not make her as weak. Skarner's another jungler being hit a little bit. His E stun duration decreased very slightly. I'm glad they're changing this though and not other stuff. Like, I definitely think he is actually pretty strong, and his E is the more busted part of his kit. This isn't going to kill him off though, which is good, but it makes him a little bit weaker, especially if you want to be maxing this first, which most people do now. Swain is in the minor one as well, because I don't think the changes do that much, but I also think Swain is actually really good at the moment. I think people just haven't learned him yet. Like, when you pick him up, he does a lot of damage, and he doesn't die very easily either. Like, he can really solo carry a game, especially with Morello not being core anymore, makes it harder to deal with him. I think you can't really cut his healing as much. So basically, Swain is good right now anyway. These make him better, but the changes are not that massive themselves. Another one like Shyvana, actually, for Twitch, there are partial reverts to the last patch. They over-nerfed him like Shyvana and are just giving him a bit of that back, so his E will do slightly more damage. Volibear as well. I'm not really sure where to put this because Riot haven't said how much they decreased the duration by. Either way, it shouldn't make it much worse. It's his ganking and healing that is messing people up so much, not really his E knockback duration. I'm not going to be talking about the new champion, by the way, in this video. I don't want to make it too long. It's already pretty long already, so we're going to be doing a proper video on her in the next couple of days to go over how you actually play her, how you're supposed to build her, and hopefully that should cover everything. That is going to wrap up with the new patch. Let me know what you think of it. Thank you for watching, and for now, I will leave you with the robots.